Welcome back to the Wickedly Brennan podcast. Today we're stepping into chapter 5 of the Marketing for Entrepreneurs, a quick guide to sparking ignite your marketing, revised edition. This chapter is called The Power of Simplicity in Marketing. And I want to start with something I see almost every single week in our work. A woman will open her laptop. She has 3 tabs open with marketing device, a half-built funnel, and a content calendar that's color-coded beautifully. 2 platforms she feels obligated to keep up with, and an offer she loves but has rewritten 5 times in the last 6 months. You know this. Her business is good. Her calendar is full, and her mind is so much louder than it used to be. I used to wake up at 3 a.m. every single night and worry about the things that I had to do. And now I wake up at 3 a.m. and I'm excited about all the things that I have to do. But what I see is she carries ideas everywhere. In the shower, in the car line, on walks at 2 a.m. There's nothing wrong with her ambition. There's nothing wrong with her capacity. There's just simply too much on her plate. And when marketing feels that heavy, complexity is usually sitting somewhere inside of it. I know this intimately because I've lived this feeling. There was a season in my own business where my strategy was technically sound, and I had multiple offers and several ways to work with us, and a website that kept expanding because I wanted to make sure everything was covered. The pages grew longer, the messaging grew broader, and the plans became far more layered. And from the outside, it looked really expansive, but from the inside, it felt super scattered. Energy was spreading across too many directions at once. And that turning point came during a quiet review of what was actually driving revenue and what was simply taking up space. And I began asking some better questions. There's a book called Essentialism that you might want to read because it actually talks about this as well. But where does momentum actually originate? Which conversations lead to long-term clients? And which pieces of content bring the right people into the room? And when I followed the patterns, rather than just what I felt in my gut, something became clear. Simplicity creates traction. Complexity creates friction. And friction slows decision-making. So when someone lands on your website or reads your content, their brain is making thousands of micro decisions in seconds. Is this relevant to me? Does it feel safe? Is it clear? Is it worth my time? When information is layered without hierarchy or cognitive load increases, when cognitive load increases, the brain conserves energy by disengaging from the content. So simplicity reduces cognitive load, and reduced cognitive load increases comprehension, and comprehension helps build trust. And we know that trust supports action and momentum. So this is not about stripping your work down to something really small. It's about distilling it to something super focused. I worked with a client once. So I feel like this, before I go into the example, I feel like this is important because entrepreneurs love to build things. So we have the shiny object syndrome problem sometimes that we carry with us. And focus is actually your superpower in this. So I worked with a client who had 8 offers and I think 4 or 5 social accounts and a 30-page website. Each offer had merit and each idea had tons of potential, but each platform had been started and each platform had been started with lots of enthusiasm. But her audience felt the fragmentation, and so did she. So inside her brand spark experience, we traced revenue patterns and emotional energy patterns side by side. We noticed which offer created excitement and which ones created obligation. We observed where her voice sounded alive and where it felt strained. We also found ways that she was missing money on the table. But we reduced one clear offer, one clear path, one primary platform, one focused landing page, and one weekly email. Within weeks, her engagement stabilized. Sales conversations became so much easier, and her content felt a lot lighter to produce for her. Her energy did return, and simplicity freed up her attention, and attention deepened connection, and connection increased her revenue. This is the part of Ignite that requires discernment. Simplicity asks you to choose. Choice asks you to release. Release creates space, and space restores your energy. And energy fuels your momentum. Many founders carry a quiet belief that more activity equals more growth. And that belief feels responsible, it feels driven, and it feels really safe to have that belief. Yet when every tactic is layered on top of the last one, your nervous system stays in a state of constant output. And constant output erodes creativity in the worst way. Eroded creativity makes marketing feel mechanical. Simplicity restores creative oxygen. It lets it breathe in a way it hasn't before. I want you to pause and I want you to consider something about your marketing. If you had to generate your next client from one place, where would you go? If you had to nurture your audience through one consistent channel, which one would feel the most natural? And if you had to explain your work in one sentence that feels like you on your best, very best, clearest day, what would it be? These questions sharpen your focus, and focus compounds. And that compounding builds that steady growth that helps you scale your business. Inside Wickedly Branded, we often talk about awaken, activate, and amplify. Simplicity lives in the activation phase. Once awareness returns and your voice feels grounded again, structure can shape your amplification. Structure thrives in simplicity. Core 3 begins here: platform, plan, and people. One primary visibility home, one repeatable rhythm, and one clear audience orientation. That structure reduces decision fatigue. Decision fatigue drains energy faster than almost anything else in business because there are so many decisions to be made in a business. And when you know where you are showing up, how often, and who you are speaking to, your brain spends far less time negotiating and more time creating. Creation fuels that ever-precious momentum, and momentum builds confidence. And that confidence steadies your presence in your marketing. There is something really relational here that matters deeply. Your audience benefits from simplicity just as much as you do. When your message becomes consistent and recognizable over and over again, people begin to anticipate the rhythm. They know where to find you. They understand what you stand for, and they sense coherence in the way you're showing up. And that coherence, again, builds that trust. And trust encourages the return, and return deepens the relationship, and relationships drive your growth. So simplicity supports repetition, and repetition supports recognition, and recognition feels like safety. Safety opens the door to engage. So this chapter in the book includes a simplify to amplify activation. It invites you to scan your marketing landscape and identify what feels heavy, what feels aligned, and what creates a measurable return for you and your business. The companion workbook that we have walks you through mapping this visually so you can see where energy is leaking and where it's compounding. If you're listening to this and thinking, I know exactly what needs to be simplified, trust that instinct. That signal is usually already present inside of you, and sometimes it just needs permission from you to act. If you want support choosing what to keep and what to release, our Brand Spark experience exists precisely for that moment. It offers outside perspective. When you're standing inside your own complexity, the next step often feels obvious once the noise quiets. We carry so much inside of our brain alone. Even my partner, my husband, doesn't really know everything that I carry in the business that I offer. And very rarely as solopreneurs or female founders of businesses do we have anybody to unload everything that's been in our brain about our business and all the things we want to do, the mission, the vision, the complications, the challenges, the historical background into one place and get it out of our head and relieve us from that noise. Brand Spark Experience offers an outside perspective when you're standing inside of your own complexity. And the next step often becomes obvious once that noise quiets. You can grab the revised edition of Marketing for Entrepreneurs on Amazon or download the PDF and companion workbook through the link in the show notes. And when you do, you also will receive our weekly Marketing Magic newsletter and podcast episode updates so that this conversation, these topics and insights and tips continue beyond this episode. Before we close, I want to leave you with a picture. Imagine sitting down tomorrow morning with one clear place to show up and one defined message to share and one rhythm that you deeply trust. Imagine closing your laptop knowing you did the right things rather than just all the things. Simplicity feels like a really deep exhale. Exhale steadies your nervous system, and a steady nervous system supports sustainable leadership. This is what we're building here. Next week, we move into chapter 6 and talk about your core 3 in detail, because once simplicity clears the field, focus can shape your growth. So until then, I want you to choose what fits your life and stay with it long enough to see how it can grow. Wow, what an incredible conversation we just had. I hope that this episode lit a little bit of a fire under you to finally bring your brand to life in a way that feels true to you. Remember, clarity is the spark, but activation is that fire and flame that keeps your message and your visuals and your strategy aligned, and the confidence that follows. So does that lovely thing called momentum that you've been waiting for. So if today's episode, if you loved it, make sure you are subscribed to the Wickedly Branded Marketing Podcast so you never miss an insight or a conversation. Until next time, dare to be wickedly branded.